is Diana Stevens. Hey, Diana, how are you doing
Hi,
today?
I'm good. How are you? Good to be here.
Good. Good to be
Loving
here.
all the great information from the speakers. Wonderful.
Yeah, isn't it great? And we've been like weaving in and out of different topics. And as I was said earlier, I'm trying to light up different areas of your brain and bring expertise in on different topics here today. So we're going to be changing gears and moving to Diana next. And Diana, you're going to be talking about stress relief tips. So we're going
Stress.
to be lighting up a
Yeah.
different area of your brain. And I got a little bit of a preview of her presentation earlier, and it's going to be such a great presentation. Now, Diana, you and I know that you're involved in some of my programs and community, but how did you and I first come into contact? Do you recall, or did we just start interacting on
I
LinkedIn?
think I found you actually through doing a little search on LinkedIn of coaches
Hmm.
that were working with mindfulness and things like that and
Mm.
job search groups and whatnot. I wanted to see who was doing what. And what caught my eye initially was your checklist that you have, the top 10 things to do when you are downsized, because I have one of those blogs on my website.
Oh, very cool.
So I thought,
Um,
oh wow, that somebody's talking about the same thing I am. So eventually we met. I looked at your classes and signed up for a couple of those, and then we got into the Friday job search group. So it's great.
that's awesome. And I'm going to drop the resource that Diana is referring to. We created this do this now checklist. It's the things that you should do now if you are laid off, if you've been let go, if you know a layoff might be coming, even if you're already in career transition and unemployed, there's some things that you should check off the list. Like nobody tells you what to do when you're let go, other than here's your severance, sign this paper.
Yep.
They might say file for unemployment, but they don't really follow up because they don't care. Like you're not their responsibility anymore. So we created a checklist. I'll drop it into the chat. Before I step off the screen, Diana, can you remind people, tell us a little bit about what you do and who you help?
Well, what I do is a very integral part of the job search, which I think a lot of people don't always focus on, and that's the emotional side of job search, as well as the stress relief side of job search. And I'm going to relate my story here when I have my slides up. But I'm an experienced, rich professional with over 35 years in the workforce.
Mhm.
I have been downsized 5 times between 2004 and 2014. And one of the reasons I'm working on this business right now is I was downsized from corporate America in December of 22.
There you go. And you know what?
So,
We're glad that you're here. And sometimes we don't plan, I mean, we don't ever plan these things, but sometimes when one door closes, another door opens, and you wouldn't be here where you are today if things hadn't happened the way that you did, right? So
absolutely.
so we're delighted. So I'm going to pull myself off screen, but before I do so, I want to make sure that you can share your screen slide. So go ahead and do the share right now, and then I'll make sure that I'm pulling those up on screen before I pop out. And while we're waiting for Diana to do that, I'm going to pop the do this now checklist into the chat for those of you who might want to check that resource out. And it's a free download. I actually work with a variety of different experts to pull that together. So I'll put that into the chat, and that'll be available in the resources as well. All right, so I think we got you up on screen here,
I am
Diana.
up on screen.
There you go. And I'm going to take
The
myself off,
technology
and I'll
is
be back in
working.
about
I love
20
it.
minutes.
Love it.
Thanks.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Diana Stevens. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And what I'd like you to do for the next 15 minutes or so is to just sit back, relax, and let this information just kind of wash over you. There's a lot of good tips and tricks in here, and some quotes and all kinds of things around the emotional side and stress relief techniques for job search. So I really invite you to embrace the present and transform your future. And I'm going to show you a number of different quotes sprinkled through this presentation. I love inspirational quotes like Joey was talking about earlier. One from Richard Branson: business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming, even though we might not feel like it all the time. And from Pema Chodron, who is a Buddhist scholar: what we call obstacles are really the way the world and our entire experience teach us when we're stuck. So a little bit more about my story. Yes, I am an experienced, rich professional. I've spent over 35 years in the job market, mainly as a national account manager for a number of Fortune 500 companies that were manufacturers. I was in the fashion industry, retail, and then also in the CPG industry. For the last 13 years, I've been in the software as a service industry, and I've been a customer success manager for a couple of different data companies. So really from 2004 to 2014, I experienced 5 downsizings, 2 of which were the company divisions closed up, and 3 of which where they just did a reduction in force. And at that same time that I was going through those downsizings, I had an elder care responsibility for my mother who had Alzheimer's and was on her Alzheimer's journey from 2000 until 2016 when she passed. But really, 3 of those times I did go through outplacement. It was very, very helpful in terms of the tactical side of job search, what I call the tactical side of job search. But in terms of the emotional support that I needed, it just wasn't there. So my mess became my mission. And I really decided that I wanted to help other job seekers navigate the emotional side and the stress side of job search. So to that end, I began my PhD program in 2019. In 2020, I wrote my dissertation, which is a mindful approach to job search. And then I founded Mindful Job Alignment, which is my company, after completing my PhD in holistic coaching in 2021. So I've really have hundreds of hours of resource material on stress relief, meditation, mindfulness techniques, and a lot of soulful support. And so that is what founded the business, and that is what I'm going to impart today and give you hopefully some golden nuggets. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that you can feel free to take screenshots of my presentation. I think Brenda's going to be sending these out, but if you want something in the moment, you're more than welcome to take screenshots of my slides. So some soulful insights here. Really, when things fall apart, it's the fear of unknown that causes our stress. And if we had a crystal ball to look into the future, we wouldn't be feeling as much stress because we would kind of know what's going to happen. But unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. So fear is a natural reaction to actually moving closer to the truth. That's from Pema Chodron. And something else you might want to consider and kind of contemplate is that if you've been downsized 2 times or more, you may want to consider that you're being called to do something else. And it's really worth reflecting on your life purpose and taking a look at that. Another quote from Rinpoche, who's also a Buddhist scholar: when things fall apart, we can use it as an opportunity to be open and inquisitive about what just happened and what will happen next. So, in my research, I've come up with an 8-step process that I work with clients on to work through the job search and the career transitions. First part being reconciling your transition and assessing your needed tactics, creating a calm space at home, reading, meditating, and journaling, continuing with diet and exercise, keeping busy with a side hustle or volunteering, identifying your values and creating a job vision based on your values, and then creating a strategic action plan for your job search, and then manifesting that job search action plan through daily action steps. And we're going to go into these in a lot more detail on the next few pages. So I really work with the assumption that job search is really both an internal or a soulful, or an external and a tactical process. And if you take a look at the photograph on the bottom of the slide of the railroad track, I think that's a very good visualization of what the job search really represents. You need to have both of those rails on the track working in good working order so that the train doesn't derail or crash, fall off the tracks. So you need both the soulful and you need the tactical. And what we're going to do is go through these in a lot more detail on the next few slides. But basically, the soulful is your internal part with reconciliation and meditating and taking time to think about what you want to do next. And then the external is all of the tactical steps that are really so well covered in all of the job search materials that are out there. One of the most important steps of going through a job transition is to really take time to reconcile the transition. There's a lot of data out on job search. Job loss ranks in the top 10 of life stressors, and even on some studies, it's probably in the top 5. It's right along there with the death of a spouse or a loved one, and also divorce. So it's really a major, major transition. It's important to take time to reconcile that and process through the 5 grief steps, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Another thought is to really understand if this is a life quake or a disruptor for you. And I have some information on a book from Bruce Feiler. He wrote a book called Life is in the Transitions, and he actually has some interesting definitions about disruptor and life quake. A life quake in your life is events that upend our lives. It really creates a major fundamental shift in the direction of your life, and you wind up going on a different path. And some of that could be death of a key loved one, it could be divorce, it could be very serious illness, accident, something like that. A disruptor is a little bit less than a life quake. It's really an event that disrupts the everyday flow of your life, but ultimately you can adjust and you can go on with your life. The other thing to consider is to evaluate your personal situation at this time and really determine a timeline. When do you absolutely need to land a new position? And this is about taking a look at your finances, taking a look at your familial situation, taking a look at your environment, and really making a plan of when do you need to land, constructing your action plan in accordance with that. It's really a good idea not to be out networking or interviewing until you've processed through the loss and then you've created a job search plan, because you may risk carrying the unresolved issues unconsciously into the interview. And I think we've all met people through the job search process who have not managed that, and they tend to tell their life story when they're in networking. Two great books for transition, and you can feel free to take a screenshot of this slide, are Life is in the Transitions by Bruce Feiler, which I just referenced. And then Daphne Kingma wrote a great book called The 10 Things to Do When Your Life Falls Apart. Very easy read. She's got them all lined out, the 10 steps, and a lot of them are spiritual, but it's an emotional and spiritual handbook and support for job search. Internal soulful practices. This is what I consider one of the most important parts of job search. And this actually is something that you can incorporate into your life on an everyday basis and keep doing this even after you land again, because these are really good stress relief techniques. First step is to create a calm space in your home for private space for yourself, for reflection, reading, meditation, and journaling. What you want to do is clear the clutter from the space and then repurpose it with items that uplift you and that are inspiring. And you could try diffusing calming oils in a diffuser. It's a very, very good way to scent the home as well as get the benefits of the olfactory through the nose calming of the oils, which I recommend lavender and ylang ylang to start with. Developing a daily meditation practice. We've heard a lot lately about meditation. It's not unattainable at all. You can do 5 or 10 minutes in the morning and the evening, and it will really calm you down. I do teach meditation as part of my process. Yoga also works really well as a moving meditation. And then you can also walk a labyrinth if there's one near you. And we have a lot of information on labyrinths at our website, and be happy to help you locate one and explain more about what a labyrinth is. I do have a blog on labyrinths on my website, so if you've never seen one, there's a nice big picture of one on the website. Gratitude journaling is also very important, and I think we've heard some things about gratitude also today, but it's something very easy that you can adopt. There's a lot of journals out that have prompts. You can also do something as simple as writing down 1, 2, or 3 things that you're grateful for in the day, because it really does help calm you. It helps calm your body, and it does shift you physiologically as you shift into the gratitude, thinking about what you're happy about. It's also a good practice to set aside time each week for reading inspirational books, blogs, magazines, websites, motivational quotes. It's good to keep a collection of these, and it's good to go back to them when you're feeling a little bit down and when you want to be motivated. You want to be surrounding yourself with positive, uplifting things. And sometimes you just need to unplug from the job search and take a day off and just nurture yourself. Managing your diet and exercise. Exercise is one of the top stress relievers for during in life and during the job search process. So keep your routines up or start a new one now that you have time. Taking a values test to understand what your top values are and creating a job vision based on your values, and setting up a weekly job action plan based on the action steps that you can take each week. And you should be including soulful and tactical practices included in the plan. Tactical practices are things that we're all very, very familiar with, but my point of view on this is that you really need to have your ATS proof resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profiles ready to go. They're really the basic price of admission to the job search. They need to be updated, and I suggest investing in a resume writer and a LinkedIn expert. You've got one right here with Brenda Miller. Joining the job search communities in your local area, especially job search work teams, also industry associations. So you can also be networking with people who are working and people who may be looking for work as well. A lot of virtual ones are popping up now that are nationwide that are helpful, especially if you're looking for remote work. The next point I put a light bulb by because I feel it's one of the most important, and I think it's one thing we all need to take a look at. Take an inventory of your skills, talents, and hobbies that you might want to formulate a side gig that you can do for dollars. And if any of you speak a second or third language, you've got one automatically built in with interpreting. You can do interpreting work. Now, is this going to bring you in the same kind of corporate salary you were making? Probably not, but it is going to give you multiple streams of income. And this is something that's very important for experience-rich job seekers because as we get older, we have to start thinking about multiple streams of income and just not be reliant on W-2 income, because you never know when that W-2 income is going to go away, and it can go away overnight. So something very important to look into. You can also create blogs. You can do things online. There's a lot of things that you can do nowadays to create additional income. And I know the volunteering is also very important. You can meet people through volunteering with your skills time with organizations, and that's a great way to network with people. Two more great books for life changes. Marianne Williamson wrote a bestseller, The Gift of Change. And then Jay Block is an empowerment and motivation coach who I'm actually studying right now with, and he has written a great book on the 5 steps to rapid employment. And both of these are New York Times bestselling books, so I highly recommend both of them. And then actually, I'm very honored to be part of a book that is out on Amazon. Mission Matters is a marketing company from LA, and they work with entrepreneurs on being authors and podcasts. And I'm very pleased to be in Mission Matters Volume 10. And I wrote a chapter called Understanding the Grief Caused by Career Transitions. This book launched in the last 2 weeks, and we're already #1 on the Amazon Hot New Release list. So very, very honored to be a part of that. And this is my last slide. You can take a screenshot of this. This is a little bit about my company, mindfuljobalignment.com. I do offer one-on-one coaching, and we'll be getting into some job search accountability groups and group coaching in the future. And I do work with you on a plan for both the internal and the external parts of job search, and we custom tailor that to your needs and to your lifestyle. So that's everything.
That was great. I loved how you started by saying, like, just sit back and take it all in.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of times when we are in career transition, Diana, we don't give ourselves permission for self-care because
right.
we're like, go, 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 gotta find a job, can't deal with all the trauma I just went through. Because the reality of the situation is if you are experience rich, you've gone through a traumatic situation, you've gone through a job loss. And I think, like you said, is there's like the stages of grief, there's the stages of job loss. And so many of us identify our identity rather is wrapped around our job, our
Mm-hmm.
role, our company. And a lot of companies say, you're part of the family here.
No, you're
Your
not.
family just kicked you out of the house and nobody
Exactly.
wants to talk to you and you're not getting invited over for holiday dinners. And by the way, you got to process that and go find a new family. It's a
Exactly.
lot, right?
It is a lot. And honestly, on the scope of things that can go wrong in your life, a
Yeah.
job loss is a little bit minor compared to some of the other things that could go wrong.
It is, but I think when
So
you're in that moment of
you don't feel
And
that way
depending on
at
where
all.
you are and the age that you are, I
Yep.
mean, my last career transition, and I have to think, you ever do that thing where you're doing your math, you're like, "How old am I right now?" Like,
Based on the
I'm
jobs.
48, so I was 42 when it happened, and I didn't get the, like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Nobody's gonna hire me." I was already interviewing at the time, and I ended up finding my job, my own I created my own job, but I've worked with so many individuals who are going through career transition, and you feel like the company has defined your expiration date before you have. Like, I still have value to bring to organizations. Why is my
Mhm.
company throwing me out like I'm no longer valuable? And it's a lot to process and go through. And I love what you were saying too, Diana, about you got to allow yourself to feel and process those emotions, because otherwise you're going to bring them into an interview and you're
Mhm.
going to find yourself regurgitating what happened and talking bad about your employer in the situation. And they, we talked about the first 7 seconds. It might be the first 7 minutes they're counting you
Correct.
out, because they're like, I can't deal with all of this. This is I want somebody who's going to hit the ground running and be productive without all of the headspace, that this is taking up to occupy. So I want to thank you for bringing that up, because it is something that can be very challenging. We're going to move into some questions and some comments.
Sure.
Before we do so, I see Joan is in our green room. So I want to just quickly say hi to Joan, bring her up on camera, and then I'll push her back down into the green room again. But Joan, let me bring you up on screen. Can you hear me okay, Joan?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Perfect. You sound loud and clear. All right, I'm going to put you back into the green room. We'll bring you back in just about 5 or 6 minutes, okay?
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So let's just go through on here. And I see a couple comments that are coming in. First of all, I see a couple congratulations on the birth of your book. So this
Thank you.
book is currently available. Is that right, Diana?
It's currently available on Amazon. Yeah, I'm one chapter in a book
Okay.
of 10. There will be one coming out with me on the front cover too. But
That's
the other thing I
awesome.
wanted to announce is I did sign with Balboa Press, and I
Okay.
am going to write a full book on the whole thing on a mindful approach to job search.
You
I'm very
definitely should,
excited
because I
about
feel
that.
like we got
Mhm.
like a little, like an appetizer of what
Yeah.
Diana had. I mean, there's like probably there's so much that you have, and you have so much passion about this topic too. And it's funny, Laura, that you say congratulations on the birth of your book. I feel like the process of writing a book is like the process of having a child. It's like
Yes.
there's so many analogies to that on there. So let me just see if there are maybe one or two more questions that we're going to bring in here. And I see
Yeah, I
one.
didn't get to see any comments going through the chat because I was on the other side. So
Yeah, right. When you're in here, you
when
can
you're in
only
here, you
see
don't see
them.
the LinkedIn stuff.
Yeah, you can only see them when the presenter. So here we got a Wilson comment. It's a little bit taller, but I'll read it off for you. It says, I left the job in January as my personal values were no longer aligned to the way that the company was moving. And I've heard this happening with other people as well. And this person says, I jumped right into the job search process, and she regrets not taking the time to reflect and reconcile the transition. Any thoughts on that, Dinah, or
Well, you
vice
can still do it. You can reflect on that at any time. I mean, I
versa?
still go back. I still think sometimes about my transitions, and if I when I didn't know as much, if I would have done different things. But certainly, you can still be reconciled. January's fresh. January's only 5 months ago.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we get so ingrained. This is what I'm talking about. We are so ingrained into this process, so to speak,
Mhm.
of jumping into the next thing, and you get into all the mechanical things, and you're so worried about all the resume and everything like that. There's the other piece. So yes, that can be done anytime through journaling, talking with someone, writing things down, thinking about it. I use a very simple values test from the Taproot Foundation. It's a one pager, and you're selecting words and then grouping them. I believe
Yeah.
in simple processes.
That's good. Yeah, simple is good. Simple is absolutely good. And I see a couple people commenting on this too. And Joan, who's up with the next, actually put this comment. So true, Diana, on having multiple incomes. And a lot of
Yep.
people, like, you don't even think about this, because you have a job, you get a paycheck, you have a job, you get a paycheck. And there might be like rumblings of people saying, have you ever thought about doing some project work or doing some of this or doing some freelance? And you're like, you swat them away like flies. No, 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 I wouldn't do that. I don't want that extra income. I think there has to be some openness probably to that, right, Diana, to
There has
taking on some
there
project
has to
work?
be. That's
Mm.
probably one of the most important takeaways from this presentation, besides the transitions. Robert Kiyosaki writes it very well in his book Cash Flow Quadrant and Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as you get older, as you accumulate your knowledge, you have to have multiple streams of income. However that's going to look. When you think about it, people who are doctors, lawyers, accountants, nurses, they have jobs past the age of 60 and
Mm-hmm.
65 and 70. partners in a law firm, people who own their own businesses, they call the shots on their timeline. Okay. So between 40 and 65, you have to be creating. And the reason I say that is because in our country, at 65, you can get your Medicare and you can get your health benefits covered. And then you also can supplement with Social Security, or if you're getting some kind of a pension, maybe from the educational system or your company or something, if you're lucky enough. But you have to be creating that, because what happens is, and probably the reason why a lot of people are still working, and certainly like why I'm still in the professional arena, is because I need to keep getting money coming in.
Absolutely.
So yes, you have to have multiple streams going on.
But I think it's probably the first time you thought about that, you swatted it away like a fly too. You're like, no,
Well,
no, no.
the time
No.
was not the greatest, but
Yeah.
now I know. I spent over a year creating my website and learning about websites.
Yeah.
So fortunately, the job was still going, and I was socking money away as fast as I could. But
Mhm.
yes, and when I was younger, I was in the elder care. I didn't have time.
Yeah.
But you have to make time, because it's one of those things you just kind of have to think about in the back of your mind,
Mhm.
because of the cost of healthcare benefits. And as we age, we become a lot more financially unattractive to a company.
Well, and you need the benefits, but it's as with any insurance, we all pay into the system and we should be
Right.
able to access those benefits, unemployment or health or otherwise, that are in here. So I want to shift gears a little. We're going to do maybe one or two or three more comments if that's okay. Melissa, I love this because Diana, you were talking about creating like this Zen space at your
Yep.
home where you can
Hmm.
journal, and Melissa's saying when I got laid off, I recycled all of the work files on my desk. It was
Yep.
so freeing. Any thoughts
Oh,
on that?
that is definitely freeing. I've done that a number of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, just get rid of them all, except anything you need for a brag book
Right?
that
And
you would
there's
want to
a
put
few
together.
things I will say I've been laid off twice in my career, and I have, like, a box of, like, mementos and things, because it was a part of my life. It was a
Right.
part of my history, and I don't wanna, like my husband's like, "Can we throw away that XYZ box?" And I'm like, "No." Every couple of years, I'll pull it out, and I'll go through, and I'll throw a couple more things away, and I think you need to, like, allow your it's like the grieving process too, like, it's too raw when it happens. Put it in a box, get it out of sight, out of mind. I have a box now that one of these summers, I'm gonna have, like, a bonfire, and I have certain things that I'm gonna, like, throw, like, old performance reviews and things like that, that I'll just get rid of them into the universe and create energy in different directions. And Deborah, I wanted to pull this comment up to Diana because I know that there are others in the group that feel the same way, that they've been laid off multiple times. It's not just
Yep.
a one-time thing, and in Deborah's case, she's like, "I've been laid off 3 times. Each one was totally unique. It had nothing to do with the performance, but I think each of these can still affect you, and maybe even compound as it's occurring. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mine didn't have anything to do with performance either,
Yeah. So
but
it's just business, right? It's like
it's
where
just
business is
business, and
going, and
bears looking at, the industry verticals and things like that. But there also is a spiritual aspect to it, that we are being called to do something else. You look at people who stay in their livelihoods for 35 years, never make a move. I know someone like that. He's an attorney, worked 31
Mhm.
years, has a pension. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
He's in his right livelihood. His passion was to be an attorney from the age of 3.
Yeah. Like,
So,
that's his calling,
some
right?
people are like that. They're very successful in corporate America, and they're living their passion and their purpose. But,
Yeah.
I think when we're removed around and things like that, you have to take notice of maybe something else is happening here, and I really should
Mhm.
take a look at it.
I like that. After the last one, I was like, "Nope, done. I'm never again.
There
I'm
you
never
are.
gonna find
See?
myself." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I'm done. I am out. Meller out,"
Thank you.
And then last one is reflecting upon the identity conversation. And Claire says, a valued friend stated, "Learn to forgive yourself, even though it wasn't your fault. Nor did you have any control over your situation, because your job is part of your identity. It doesn't define you as a person." And I think that's a really important point, Diana, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Learn to forgive yourself, even
Yep.
if it wasn't your fault. Any final comments on that?
Absolutely. It when you really study the landscape of corporate America and what goes on, it becomes it is not you. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard this from a couple CFOs and from a good friend of mine who used to work for an insurance company,
Mhm.
that it really is usually fiscal. And once you're aging and you're taking the benefits and things like that, you become more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it isn't you, and it does hurt. Now my last position, I could tell it was coming, but I'm going in with a different lens now, eyes wide open, versus years ago.
Mhm.
So, and I know that once I hit the magic age I hit in October, that my friend who was insurance said, watch out now because you
Yeah.
don't have to be on the books anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not personal. It's all
Yeah.
business.
It's all business, and we gotta just look at the position was eliminated, you were in the position, so your role no longer exists at the company, but I think that's a really important point. So, Diana, I would just wanna thank you so much for being on with us here today. I'm gonna pull your profile up
Sure.
on screen,
Thank you.
and while I'm doing that, can you just remind us, what are the services that you offer if someone wanted to work with you directly?
Well, I'm offering a 30-minute discovery call, and I'm a little bit flexible on that time as well. If we run over 30 minutes, that's fine. I'm
Mhm.
offering that to a discovery call to see what we can do to work together, or I can help you with quickly. And I'm also offering, if people sign up for the email list, a list of my resources, reading resources for job seekers. And
Mhm.
if you sign up for my email list, I promise you, I will not be spamming you with a million sales funnel emails coming through 4 times a day at all. If anything, there might be some resources once a month, but it's not going to be that kind of thing. But would love to work with people on that. My contact information is on the profile. I'm in creator mode, so
Mhm.
you do have to click on the more button, click on the more to connect, but happy to connect. Just send a note, experience rich live-a-thon, glad to connect with people. And please feel free to reach out with any questions or things like that. But look forward to
Alright.
working with people. One-on-one, we'll start with one-on-one. And then as I gather a group of people, we may start a job search group or a group coaching. But right now it's one-on-one.
That's great. Well, thank you, Diana. I'm glad that your journey brought you
I
to
am
us, I
too.
should say today. I am glad for that. And I know, like, when you're going through things, like, it's very painful to go through the transition. That's why I'm so glad you were talking about stress release tips today, because we can't just talk about the image and the doing this and the positive. We got to talk about sometimes, like, how to deal with all the stuff, the
Well, that's
baggage and the mental stuff too.
it's
That's
really the
important.
elephant in the living room, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to address it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Diana, and I'll make sure to include your resources in the playback. So I'll go ahead and move you to the green room, and will you be able to join us out on the LinkedIn live stream to
Yes,
answer
I'll
some
go
questions?
back to LinkedIn Live. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Take care, Diana, and I'll
Thank
see you
you.
on maybe on our next Friday call or the next week
Yes,
after that.
I'll be
After.
on tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I'll see you then. Thank you.